What if the most powerful man in Chicago dropped to his knees in a dark, abandoned warehouse, hands clasped behind his head, voluntarily surrendering himself to his enemies, just to save the life of a destitute single mother and her little 4-year-old son? Can you even imagine it? A 22-year-old woman, thin and starving, who once lived in a freezing apartment with no heat and no electricity because of one tiny whispered warning inside a car garage, made that mysterious crime boss willing to trade his entire empire, his freedom, even his own life. Is love truly strong enough to turn a predator into willing prey? And that poor woman, would she dare walk back into hell itself to save the man who had pulled her out of the abyss? The story you're about to hear will leave you breathless with deadly twists, chilling betrayals, and a burning love that defies every boundary of wealth, poverty, power, and darkness. Before we dive into this chilling and mysterious story, please remember to subscribe to the channel Alex Truths and like this video. Every subscription, like, and share from you is a huge spiritual gift and an incredibly profound source of motivation for the channel's growth, so we can continue bringing wonderful videos every day to everyone. There would be no greater joy than receiving your love and support through the comments you leave right below this video. Comments sharing your emotions or telling us which province or city you're living and working in while listening to this story. All right, let's continue together and immerse ourselves in this amazing, captivating story that's filled with deep emotions. It was a crisp October evening in Chicago back in 2025, when everything in my broken world changed forever. I remember the chill seeping through the thin walls of our tiny apartment on the South Side, the kind of cold that bites into your bones no matter how many threadbare blankets you pile on. My name is Harper Jenkins, 22 years old, raising my 4-year-old son Noah alone after his father walked out, leaving us with nothing but unpaid bills and empty promises. We were at the edge of everything. Eviction notices taped to the door, the fridge echoing empty most nights, heat shut off for weeks. I'd been scraping by as a detailer at Caldwell Classic Restorations, polishing chrome and wiping down leather seats for minimum wage, my hands raw from chemicals, my body thin and exhausted from too many skipped meals and sleepless nights, worrying about how to feed my boy. That day, I was finishing up late in the flagship garage on the west side, the air thick with the scent of motor oil and polished metal. The place was a palace compared to my life. Rows of gleaming classic American muscle cars under bright lights, tools that cost more than my monthly rent lined up perfectly. And there he was, Ethan Caldwell, the owner, 34, fair-skinned, with that quiet power that made everyone straighten up when he walked in. He was wealthy beyond anything I could imagine, dressed in tailored suits that probably cost thousands, driving cars that roared like thunder. But rumors whispered darker things about how his family business stretched far beyond restorations, how he controlled parts of the city no one talked about openly. I was hanging a small American flag rearview mirror charm on his personal 1969 Dodge Charger, my fingers trembling from the cold and hunger, when I noticed Tommy, his regular driver, lingering by the bay doors. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Tommy kept adjusting his jacket, his hand hovering near his hip in a way I'd seen before in the rough neighborhoods I'd grown up in. A quick draw position, a concealed gun. His eyes darted to Ethan, then to his watch, then away, nervous, desperate, like a man about to cross a line he'd never come back from. My heart pounded so hard I felt dizzy, the world tilting as old fears flooded back. Nights hiding from bill collectors, shielding Noah from the chaos outside our door, the humiliating food pantry lines where strangers pitied us. Why me? Why now? But in that moment of numb shock, survival kicked in. The same instinct that had kept us alive through evictions and empty cupboards. Ethan was stepping toward the car, unsuspecting. If I said nothing, a powerful man would die, and maybe the garage would close, leaving me and Noah on the street for good. If I spoke, what then? Confusion swirled, fear gripping my throat like ice. I glanced around, no one close enough to hear. My voice came out soft, timid, barely a whisper as I leaned in, pretending to adjust the charm one last time. Sir, your driver has a gun. He's positioned for a quick draw. Don't get in that car. Ethan froze, his dark eyes meeting mine for the first time. Not with anger or dismissal, but with a flicker of something deep, searching. In that instant, I saw the turmoil beneath his controlled exterior. Gnawing guilt from a life built on shadows. Remorse for losses he'd buried long ago. A violent emotional conflict raging as he weighed my words against years of paranoia and betrayal. His fair-skinned face tightened, jaw clenching, as if my quiet warning had cracked something inside him. A reminder of vulnerability he'd fought to erase. He didn't question me, didn't demand proof. Instead, he straightened slowly, his voice calm but edged with steel as he called out, "Change of plans. I'm driving myself tonight." Tommy's face paled, but Ethan was already moving, signaling his security with a subtle nod. Minutes later, in a tense confrontation outside the garage, rival crew members pulling up aggressively, words flying like threats in the night air, Ethan's men intercepted them without chaos escalating further. Tommy confessed under pressure, paid by a rival faction to deliver Ethan into an ambush. As the dust settled, Ethan turned back to me, his eyes intense, conflicted, remorse flooding him for the danger his world brought to innocents like me, yet a surging, overwhelming protectiveness I'd never known. "You saved my life," he said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "Why?" I stood there, malnourished frame shivering in my worn jacket, tears pricking from the absurdity of it all, the destitute woman warning the powerful man. I don't know, sir. I just saw it. And Noah, my son, we have nothing. But I couldn't let it happen. Something shifted in him then, an intense, passionate surge, love igniting fiercely in that very moment, tearing at his guarded heart. Guilt consumed him for my poverty, remorse for the unjust world that had left me so desperate. He promoted me on the spot. Personal assistant, triple pay, a safe apartment for Noah and me. As we drove away from the garage that night, his luxury SUV a world away from my leaking roof, I felt horror, anxiety, curiosity, dizzy with disorientation at this sudden shift. How could a whisper change everything? And why did his gaze hold such fierce, conflicting depth? Little did I know that warning wasn't just saving him. It was the start of him saving us. Those first 3 months after my whisper in the garage felt like stepping into a dream that could shatter at any moment, leaving me and Noah colder and hungrier than before. October of 2025 blurred into November, the Chicago winds turning sharper, biting through the thin walls of the new apartment Ethan had arranged for us. A clean, warm place in a secure building, with heat that actually worked, and a kitchen where the fridge hummed full for the first time in years. But even as gratitude warmed me on the coldest nights, suspicion gnawed deeper, a constant whisper in my mind. Why me? What does a man like Ethan Caldwell want with someone as broken and powerless as I am? My new role as his personal assistant meant long days shadowing him, notebook in hand, observing the world of gleaming classic car auctions and private viewings that masked deeper dealings. The disparity hit me like a physical blow every time. The roar of engines worth more than I'd earn in a lifetime, the scent of new leather and polished chrome, contrasting with memories of my malnourished frame, hunched over Noah in our old rundown apartment, the walls cracked, the wind howling through gaps we'd stuffed with old newspapers. I'd been so thin then, ribs showing under worn sweaters, sleep-deprived eyes burning from nights listening for intruders or creditors, humiliated by food stamps and pitying glances at the corner store. Ethan was always there, his presence a towering contrast. Fair-skinned, impeccably suited, his wealth on display in subtle ways, the gold watch catching light, the fleet of restored muscle cars that could buy entire blocks in my old neighborhood. Yet his eyes held torment, a gnawing remorse that surfaced in quiet moments, as if my poverty mirrored losses he'd buried long ago. He spoke little of his past, but I sensed the violent conflict raging inside him. Guilt for the shadows his empire cast, remorse for dragging an innocent like me closer. The first real test came 2 weeks in, at a high-end car show in a downtown Chicago convention center, lights gleaming off rows of classic American beauties. Ethan was negotiating a special acquisition when I noticed it. A man in the crowd, lingering too long near a display, his hand twitching toward his pocket, eyes darting with that same desperate determination I'd seen in Tommy. My heart hammered, dizziness washing over me as old fears resurfaced. The unjust evictions, the nights Noah cried from hunger while I rationed cereal. Softly, timidly, I leaned close to Ethan amid the crowd. "Sir, that man by the red Mustang. He's wired, I think. Nervous hands, watching you too much." Ethan's body tensed, his dark eyes flickering with that inner storm, remorse flooding him for exposing me to this, yet a surging protectiveness that made his jaw clench. Without a word, he signaled his team. Minutes later, in a tense street confrontation outside the venue, rival faction members pulling up in unmarked vans, words sharp and threatening under the city lights. Ethan's men intercepted them boldly, diffusing the standoff with firm warnings and strategic positioning. No chaos erupted, but the suspense hung thick, my legs numb with shock, balance lost as I clung to the wall, horror and curiosity warring inside me. He turned to me afterward, voice low. "You saw it again." "How?" I whispered, guarded and fearful. I've learned to watch, sir, to survive." Something ignited in him then, a passionate surge, love burning fiercer, tearing at his heart with violent conflict. How could he feel this for someone so destitute, so vulnerable? Guilt consumed him, remorse for the unfair world that had left me desperate, powerless. More incidents followed, each escalating the drama, tearing at our inner worlds. One late November evening, driving back from a private viewing, rivals tailed us through Chicago streets, pulling alongside at a red light in an unexpected, bold move, engines revving, stares hard and intimidating. My breath caught, anxiety numbing my limbs, memories of cold, wind-filled nights flooding back, the humiliation of begging landlords for one more week. Ethan didn't flinch outwardly, but inside the turmoil raged, gnawing remorse for endangering us, yet that overwhelming love protecting me like a shield. He accelerated smoothly, his team converging from side streets to box them in, a tense standoff resolved with cold words and retreated threats. In quieter moments, attraction built like a storm. Late nights in the garage headquarters, sharing deep dish pizza delivered hot and steaming, layers of cheese and sauce, a luxury I'd rarely known. Ethan opened slightly, his voice rough with emotion. "My father lost everything to bad deals. I built this to never be powerless again." I nodded, timidly sharing fragments. The father who'd abandoned us, the jobs lost, the absurd unfairness of illness draining our last dollars while Noah grew thinner. One night, after another narrow escape, a rival crew blocking an alley in a sudden, bold confrontation, resolved only by Ethan's commanding presence and quick thinking, we ended up at his Gold Coast penthouse, the city lights sprawling below like stars I could almost touch. The luxury overwhelmed me. Vast rooms, plush furnishings, windows framing Lake Michigan's dark waves. I stood dizzy, disoriented, pain from old hardships aching anew against this opulence. He noticed my trembling, offered coffee in delicate china. As I sipped, confusion and fear gave way to curiosity. Why this kindness? His eyes met mine, tormented. Harper, seeing you like this, after what you've endured, it tears me apart. The air thickened, a quiet emotional stillness enveloping us. Then, in a surge, his hand brushed mine, passionate, intense love overwhelming him from that first warning, now burning uncontrollably. Remorse gnawed deeper for my past misery, guilt for his world's dangers. I pulled back slightly, guarded, voice soft and polite. "Sir, Mr. Caldwell, I don't understand. I'm nothing. Just a poor woman with a child, barely surviving." Tears pricked, sympathy for my own pitiful life, the humiliating nights enduring cold winds alone. But he knelt then, fair-skinned face etched with conflict. "You're everything. Brave, perceptive. You've saved me more times than I deserve." The moment stretched, condensed emotion hanging heavy. Attraction quiet but undeniable. His loneliness mirroring my isolation, our worlds colliding in unfair, absurd intensity. As weeks passed, trust rose amid the drama. More tense street encounters with rivals, unexpected pullovers, bold stares diffused by his power, each heightening suspense, my inner torment violent, shock numbing me at sudden wealth's embrace. Yet, in stolen glances, shared meals, his teaching me the business's hidden layers, attraction deepened. He fought his surging love, tormented by the gap, his power against my powerlessness, while I battled suspicion, fear, and a curious pull toward this man who saw me not as destitute, but as worthy. By December's edge, in another quiet penthouse evening overlooking the glittering city, the attraction simmered, ready to ignite. But the drama escalated relentlessly. Unjust situations piling on, rumors of rivals targeting those close to him, tearing at our hearts, building toward something inevitable, passionate, and life-altering. Little did I know, the quiet attraction was only the beginning of a bond that would consume us both. The midnight deal at the Chicago docks in late November of 2025 marked the night everything escalated, tearing deeper into the fragile trust we'd been building and exposing the raw, violent edges of Ethan's world. The air was thick with salt from Lake Michigan, mixed with motor oil and the faint, unsettling organic scent drifting from the water. I stood beside Ethan in black pants and a fitted jacket he'd arranged for me. Simple, practical clothes that still felt foreign against my skin. A far cry from the threadbare layers I'd worn through countless cold, wind-filled nights in our old apartment, where Noah and I huddled together for warmth, my malnourished body aching from skipped meals and endless worry. The docks were a shadowed world of massive shipping containers, stacked like giants under sparse lights, 3 black SUVs forming a semicircle around one marked for the special shipment. Ethan's men positioned themselves protectively, Antonio at his right, Marco at his left, while I lingered slightly behind, clutching a leather portfolio, trying to appear professional yet invisible. The wealth on display stunned me anew. The gleaming vehicles, the coordinated security, all underscoring the chasm between Ethan's power and my past destitution. The humiliating food pantry queues, the eviction threats, the nights sleep-deprived and thin, shielding Noah from the howling winds through cracked windows. Vince Russo approached with swagger, a heavy-set man whose men clustered too close, hands hovering near belts. Moretti, Caldwell, he corrected with a grin, punctual as always. Ethan's voice carried amusement edged with warning. When have I ever been late? Tension built as they opened the container, crates that, on paper, held legitimate parts, but the air grew heavier, my instincts screaming, wrong. I cataloged details desperately. Russo's men too nervous, one sweating despite the chill, another glancing toward the dark water. My heart raced, dizziness sweeping over me as memories flooded. The absurd unfairness of losing jobs to illness, rationing food while Noah grew paler, powerless against a world that crushed the poor. Softly, timidly, I stepped closer to Ethan. "Sir, something's off. That one by the water, he's signaling. And reflections, gun barrels in the shadows, I think." Ethan's body went rigid, his fair-skinned face tightening with inner torment, gnawing remorse for pulling me into this danger, violent conflict raging as his passionate love surged protectively, burning intensely. Guilt consumed him for my exposure, yet he trusted my words instantly, as always. Calmly, almost bored, he addressed Russo. "You disappoint me. Sloppy ambush." Russo faltered as Ethan triggered hidden floodlights from Antonio's phone, harsh white illuminating hidden gunmen, caught like prey. But more emerged, Ethan's own reinforcements, positioned strategically, outnumbering them completely. The suspense peaked in that frozen moment, my legs numb, balance lost, horror and anxiety tearing at me, shock at the near miss, confusion at my role in it. Ethan drew his sidearm with grace, voice cold. "I plan for betrayal. You just hope." The standoff resolved with firm commands, Russo's men disarmed, the deal severed decisively, no chaos erupting but the threat clear and bold. In the SUV fleeing the docks, adrenaline crashed over me, legs disconnected, calm strangely settling amid the turmoil. Ethan lit a cigarette, something new, the flame dramatic in the dark interior, smoke curling toward the window as city lights blurred past. "You saw them first," he said, exhaling slowly. "Again." I explained haltingly, the signals, the reflections, voice soft, guarded. His eyes studied me through smoke, tormented deeper. "Twice now. You've saved me twice." The words hung heavy. In his world, debts like this were permanent. "That means you're mine now, Harper," he said quietly, leaning closer, cologne mixing with smoke. "Under my protection, tied to me, no safe way out." I should have felt trapped, desperate, impoverished woman bound to a powerful man. Instead, intoxicating danger stirred, curiosity overwhelming fear. His love, burning from that first whisper, surged passionately, tearing his heart with remorse for my past misery, guilt for binding me closer. The drive silenced, air crackling unnamed. Earlier tensions replayed, unexpected rival pull-ups on highways, bold stares diffused by his team's convergence, each heightening suspense, my inner world violently torn. Pitiful memories of cold nights, humiliating powerlessness against this sudden security. At the estate, he walked me to my door, gesture almost gentle. "Rest. Tomorrow continues." Alone, staring at the ceiling in luxury I'd never known, fundamental shift hit. I wasn't just assisting anymore. I was part of his world. And strangely, I wasn't sure I wanted escape. Little did I know, the dock ambush was only deepening the bond that would soon consume us entirely. The weeks following the dock ambush blurred into a whirlwind of escalating danger and quiet, heart-tearing moments that pulled us inexorably closer, until one December night in 2025, when the simmering attraction finally exploded into something raw, consuming, and undeniable. The Chicago winter had settled in fiercely, snow blanketing the streets, winds howling off Lake Michigan like the desperate cries of my past life. The endless cold nights in that crumbling apartment, thin blankets doing nothing against the drafts, my malnourished body curled around Noah to share what little warmth we had, sleep evaded by hunger pangs, and the humiliating fear of tomorrow's empty fridge. Eaton's Gold Coast penthouse became a frequent refuge after late dealings, its opulence a stark, dizzying contrast that left me numb and disoriented each time. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing the glittering city and dark lake below, plush furnishings that swallowed you in comfort, a kitchen stocked with foods I'd only dreamed of. His wealth intensified with every visit, the private elevator, the art on walls worth more than my lifetime earnings, the casual way he'd pour aged whiskey into crystal glasses. Yet his fair-skinned features often tightened with inner torment, gnawing remorse for the disparity, violent conflict raging as his passionate love for me ignited that first warning and burning ever fiercer, warred with guilt for thrusting me deeper into his shadowed world. Drama escalated relentlessly in those days, rivals growing bolder after Rousseau's fall. One snowy afternoon, returning from a legitimate car auction, unmarked vehicles tailed us aggressively through downtown streets, pulling alongside in an unexpected, tense confrontation at a stoplight. Engines revving threateningly, stares hard through frosted windows. My heart pounded, anxiety numbing my limbs, memories of unjust evictions and powerless nights flooding back, tears pricking at the absurdity of my life now intertwined with such peril. Ethan remained outwardly calm, but I saw the storm in his eyes, remorse consuming him for endangering me and Noah, yet protectiveness surging passionately. He signaled discreetly. His team converged swiftly from side streets, boxing the rivals in a bold standoff, resolved with cold warnings and retreated threats, suspense hanging thick in the air. Similar incidents piled on, sudden blockades in alleys, bold approaches diffused by his commanding presence, each tearing violently at my inner world, shock and confusion leaving me dizzy, balance lost against this sudden protection after years of desperate isolation. That night, after the latest escape, we ended up at the penthouse again, city lights sprawling like a sea of stars below. A small cut marred Ethan's cheek from brushing against debris in the chaos. I insisted on tending it, my hands trembling as I dabbed antiseptic in the softly lit bathroom, the luxury overwhelming, marble counters, heated floors, a world away from my old life's cold linoleum. Up close, his presence enveloped me, the scent of his cologne, the defined lines of his face etched with conflict. My own reflection haunted me, thin, still malnourished despite better meals, eyes shadowed from lingering sleep deprivation, a pitiful reminder of humiliating hardships endured alone. We moved to the living room, quiet, emotional stillness settling as he poured drinks. Sharing childhood scars came naturally then, his voice rough, revealing a father lost to violence, building an empire from ashes. Mine, timid, soft, polite fragments of abandonment, illness draining savings, cold winds through walls while Noah shivered. The air thickened, condensed emotion hanging heavy. His hand brushed mine accidentally, then lingered, passionate surge overwhelming him, love burning intensely, tearing his heart with remorse for my past misery, guilt for dangers now. I pulled back slightly, guarded, fearful. Mr. Caldwell, Ethan, why me? I'm just nothing, poor, broken. His eyes met mine, tormented deeper. You're everything, Harper. Brave, real. He offered escape then, money, new identity, freedom from his world. Voice soft, curious yet anxious, I refused. I've chosen you. The moment stretched, then exploded. He cupped my face gently, pulling me close. Our kiss was fierce, desperate, a release of months' tension, raw and consuming, passionate fire igniting fully. His inner conflict raged, violent remorse for claiming someone so vulnerable, while shock numbed me, dizziness from poverty's survivor suddenly loved fiercely by power itself. That first night together was explosive, intimacy bridging the chasm, his wealth enveloping my past powerlessness in overwhelming protection. Yet, even as passion bound us, drama loomed, rivals' threats growing, unjust shadows creeping closer. Little did I know, this ignition would only fuel the sacrifices and turmoil ahead. The 6 months that followed our first explosive night together felt like a fragile, impossible dream. One I kept waiting to wake from, cold and hungry again in that crumbling Southside apartment, wind slicing through the walls while Noah cried softly in the dark. But every morning in Ethan's sprawling suburban estate outside Chicago, I opened my eyes to warmth, to silence broken only by birds, and the distant hum of luxury I still couldn't believe was real. By early spring of 2025, Noah and I had fully moved in, my little boy running through manicured gardens that stretched farther than our old block, his cheeks filling out with color from regular meals, his laughter echoing in rooms larger than our entire former home. The disparity tore at me daily, a violent inner conflict that left me dizzy and numb. The memory of my thin, malnourished frame shivering through endless cold nights, sleep-deprived eyes burning from worry over empty cupboards and eviction notices, contrasted against this overwhelming wealth, marble floors that stayed warm underfoot, a kitchen always stocked with fresh fruit and meats I'd once rationed by the slice, closets filled with clothes that fit perfectly. I would stand at the vast windows overlooking the grounds, hands pressed to glass, tears pricking at the absurdity, the unfairness of it all. How could someone as powerless and destitute as I had been deserve this? Ethan watched me with tormented eyes, his fair-skinned face tightening whenever he caught my quiet stillness. His love, passionate, intense, burning from that very first whisper, had only grown fiercer, yet gnawing remorse consumed him for the gap between our worlds, violent emotional conflict raging as guilt flooded him for my past suffering. He began divesting quietly from the shadowed side of his empire, selling off certain operations under legal pressure, attending Noah's t-ball games incognito in the stands, his powerful frame hunched in a baseball cap, clapping with genuine joy when my son hit the ball. Mornings became sacred. Coffee brewed strong in a gleaming machine, shared at the island while Ethan reviewed legitimate business reports, explaining restaurant chains and club expansions in patient tones. We watched Chicago Cubs spring training on the massive screen, Noah curled between us, and for those hours the outside world felt distant. Ethan's mother, Evelyn Caldwell, visited often, a sharp-eyed woman whose approval came slowly but warmed over time, seeing how her son softened around us. Yet danger crept closer, escalating the drama that tore at our inner worlds with increasing intensity. Vincent Malone, nursing vengeance for his nephew Vince Russo, began striking back. One April evening, while Ethan handled a club matter downtown, I received frantic calls. A Caldwell garage on the west side had been firebombed, flames visible for blocks, destroying restored classics worth fortunes. Unjust, absurd cruelty. Hard-working mechanics out of jobs, dreams reduced to ash. Panic numbed me, legs unsteady as I paced the estate, memories of powerlessness surging, landlords shutting off heat midwinter, food stamps running out before month's end. When Ethan returned late, soot on his suit despite the distance, his face etched deeper with torment, I rushed to him, voice soft and timid. "Are you hurt, sir? Ethan?" He pulled me close, arms trembling slightly, remorse flooding his eyes. "No, but good people lost everything tonight." His love surged protectively, passionate fire burning as he held me tighter, inner conflict violent, guilt for dragging us nearer to retaliation, yet unable to let go. More confrontations followed, each bolder. One rainy May afternoon, driving Noah home from a park playdate, rival vehicles boxed us in on a quiet suburban street. Unexpected, tense standoff with engines idling threateningly, windows down just enough for hard stares. My heart hammered, anxiety leaving me dizzy, balance lost as I gripped the wheel, shielding Noah in the back seat, horror at endangering my son after years protecting him alone. Ethan's team arrived swiftly, converging in a coordinated display of power that diffused the threat with cold warnings and strategic positioning. Rivals retreating under pressure. He met us at the estate gates, face pale with rage and remorse, scooping Noah up first, then crushing me against him. "I'm getting us out of this," he whispered fiercely, love overwhelming, tearing his heart apart. Quiet moments contrasted the growing storm. Evenings on the terrace watching sunsets over the grounds. Ethan teaching Noah to throw a baseball while I prepared simple dinners, hot dogs and macaroni, American comforts that grounded me. Condensed emotional stillness would settle then, his hand finding mine, eyes meeting with burning intensity, unspoken promises hanging heavy. But Malone escalated again in June. One of Ethan's legitimate clubs hit with sabotage. Windows smashed, patrons frightened away. Ethan left at dawn to handle it, kissing me deeply, voice rough. "Stay safe, lock everything." Alone with Noah, fear and curiosity warred. Guarded suspicion of this life's fragility, yet overwhelming pull toward the man who had become our world. As summer deepened, the pattern intensified. Bold tailing on highways resolved by his team's interventions. Unexpected approaches near the estate diffused decisively. Each incident heightened suspense, my inner torment violent, shock at sudden security after destitute isolation, confusion numbing me against passionate nights where Ethan's love consumed us completely, remorse gnawing him for every risk. By late summer, Ethan had divested significantly, focusing on restaurants and clubs, but Malone's vendetta burned hotter. One August morning, Ethan kissed us goodbye, heading to assess another hit. "Back by dinner," he promised, eyes tormented yet fierce with love. I watched him go, heart tearing with premonition, the domestic bliss we'd built feeling increasingly fragile against gathering shadows. Little did I know, that morning would shatter everything, thrusting us into the darkest chapter yet. The morning Ethan left to handle the latest club attack in August of 2025 started like any other. Soft sunlight filtering through the estate's tall windows, coffee steaming on the counter, Noah's laughter as he chased bubbles in the garden. Ethan kissed me deeply at the door, his hands lingering on my waist, eyes burning with that passionate intensity that still left me breathless. "Stay inside today," he murmured, voice rough with unspoken worry. "Locks on, security close." I nodded, soft and timid. "Be safe, Ethan." He smiled faintly, tormented remorse flickering as he glanced at Noah, guilt tearing at him for the shadows creeping ever nearer to our fragile domestic peace. The estate felt too quiet after he left, the luxury suddenly oppressive. Vast rooms echoing, manicured lawns stretching endlessly under armed patrols. I busied myself with Noah, reading stories on plush couches, preparing peanut butter sandwiches in the gleaming kitchen, a far cry from the pitiful days of rationing bread crusts in our old apartment, thin and malnourished, enduring cold winds that howled through cracks while creditors pounded the door. By midday, unease settled, anxiety numbing my limbs. I stood at the window, watching security patrols, memories surging of unjust hardships, illness draining our last savings, humiliating pantry lines where strangers pitied my hollow cheeks and Noah's too small clothes. Confusion warred with fear. Why this lingering dread in such safety? Then it happened. Sudden, bold, shattering. Alarms blared briefly before being silenced. Gates breached in an orchestrated assault. Black vans stormed the drive, men in masks pouring out with ruthless efficiency. Security engaged in tense, contained confrontations, bold positioning and firm commands holding lines momentarily. But Malone's crew overwhelmed them strategically. No chaos erupting, yet suspense thick as smoke. I grabbed Noah, heart hammering, dizziness sweeping as I ran upstairs, locking us in the safe room Ethan had shown me. Horror gripped me, legs numb, balance lost against the absurdity. After escaping destitution's cruelty, now this? My boy's small hand clutched mine, eyes wide. "Mama, what's happening?" Through monitors, I watched the breach. Men sweeping rooms methodically, faces hard under masks. One kicked in the safe room door after disabling locks. Unexpected swiftness leaving me powerless again. Echoes of past desperation tearing violently at my inner world. Rough hands seized us, Noah crying as they separated him briefly before bundling us into a van. Shock numbed everything. Confusion, deep disorientation, pain from grips too tight on my still thin arms. The drive blurred, city giving way to industrial Southside, ending at an abandoned warehouse reeking of rust and neglect. Malone waited inside, cold smile twisting his features. "Welcome, Miss Jenkins. Time to break Caldwell properly." His plan unfolded cruelly. Traffic me overseas for maximum humiliation, use Noah as permanent leverage, absurdly unfair, exposing my utter misery anew after tasting security. They separated us. Noah taken to a side room with a guard, his cries echoing heartbreakingly. Alone, chained lightly in the main space, fear and anxiety consumed me. Guarded suspicion toward rescuers I'd once distrusted, now reversed into desperate hope for Ethan. Memories flooded pitifully. Sleep-deprived nights shielding Noah from cold, malnourished body aching, now threatened worse. Malone circled, taunting. "He thinks he's untouchable, but losing you both, that'll destroy him more than anything." His words tore deeper, inner torment violent, shock at vulnerability after Ethan's protection, curiosity morbid about outcomes. Hours stretched in condensed emotional stillness, warehouse shadows lengthening, distant traffic rumbling like forgotten normalcy. Guards watched, tense but controlled. No excessive chaos, just suspense building as Malone awaited Ethan's response. News reached him eventually. Ethan storming toward rescue, love surging passionately, remorse gnawing for failing us. My heart tore with premonition. Whatever came next would escalate the drama unbearably, confusing and numbing our worlds further. Little did I know, Ethan's arrival would force sacrifices that would bind us eternally, or break us completely. The warehouse on Chicago's South Side stood cold and cavernous that August evening in 2025, its concrete floors stained with years of neglect, the air heavy with rust, and the distant echo of Lake Michigan waves. I sat chained to a metal chair in the center, wrists raw but not cruelly tight, Noah mercifully in a separate room, with a guard who at least gave him crayons and water. My body ached from the rough handling, thin frame still carrying echoes of malnourishment, despite months of better food. Memories of cold, wind-filled nights in that leaking apartment surging back with humiliating force, sleep-deprived eyes burning as I fought dizziness and numb shock. Malone paced before me, smug satisfaction twisting his face. Caldwell will come, and when he does, he'll learn what real loss feels like. His plan was viciously simple. Break Ethan psychologically by trafficking me and holding Noah indefinitely. Absurdly unfair cruelty after I'd finally tasted safety, tearing violently at my inner world with confusion and horror. Hours dragged in condensed emotional stillness, guards watchful, suspense building like storm pressure. Then the breach, doors forced open, Ethan's voice cutting through chaos, calm and commanding. His team stormed in strategically, tense confrontations flaring at entrances, bold positioning, firm demands, rivals yielding ground under coordinated pressure without eruption into worse. Ethan emerged into the main space, fair-skinned face etched with controlled fury, eyes locking on me first, passionate love surging, burning intensely, remorse gnawing deeper for failing to protect us. Violent inner conflict raged, guilt consuming him for my exposure, torment at seeing me powerless again after lifting me from destitution. Malone's men formed a circle, one stepping forward with Noah, my boy trembling, small hand clutching a crayon drawing. Malone pressed a sidearm to Noah's head, voice cold. "Drop everything, Caldwell, or the kid doesn't walk." The warehouse froze. Ethan's team hesitated, weapons lowered slowly under his subtle signal. His jaw clenched, torment deepening, gnawing remorse for endangering an innocent child, violent emotional upheaval as love for us both tore him apart. I surged against chains, voice soft yet desperate. "Ethan, no, take Noah, get him out." Horror gripped me, anxiety numbing limbs, dizziness sweeping as old powerlessness resurfaced. Pitiful nights shielding my son alone, now threatened worse. Ethan's eyes met mine across the space, everything unspoken blazing there. Fear of losing me, guilt for dragging me into his world, passionate love he'd carried since my first whisper, now overwhelming. Beneath raged a promise of annihilation for any harm. He did something I'd never imagined. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his own weapon, letting it clatter to concrete. Hands rose in surrender, ripple of shock running through his men. "Boss," Antonio hissed, but Ethan silenced him calmly. "Giving him what he wants, me, unarmed." Malone's confidence flickered, interest sharpening. Ethan took measured steps forward. "Let them go. Keep me. I'm worth more. Ransom, leverage, whatever. Noah's a child, Harper's civilian. This makes you a monster, not smart." Inner turmoil tore Ethan visibly, remorse flooding for sacrificing strategy, yet love surging protectively, burning fiercely. "You love her," Malone realized, wonder creeping in. The untouchable Ethan Caldwell, weak for a poor nobody and her kid. "Yes," Ethan admitted simply, voice steady though eyes blazed. The confession hit me harder than chains, shock numbing me, tears pricking at overwhelming surge from a man whose wealth and power had rescued me from destitution's humiliation. "Trade," Ethan continued, closer now. "They walk unharmed. I stay. Do whatever, ransom, message, but they go free." Malone weighed it, greed warring with vengeance. A dead child gained nothing. The Caldwell boss hostage held empire's worth. "Your men stand down completely. You kneel, hands behind head." "Done," Ethan agreed instantly. No hesitation. Protests rose, Marco's voice sharp, but Ethan ordered firmly, "That's final." Weapons hit concrete in echoing surrender. Ethan walked forward until directly before Malone, dropping to knees slowly, hands clasping behind head, vulnerable in ways I'd never seen, powerful frame humbled for us. Malone roughly released Noah first, my boy running to Antonio's arms. Then me, pushed forward, stumbling, dizziness overwhelming as Ethan briefly caught my arms, grip fierce with unspoken love before Antonio pulled me back. "Wait," I struggled, voice breaking. "Ethan, you can't—" "Get them out," Ethan commanded, eyes never leaving Malone, voice brooking no argument. "Now." Antonio lifted Noah, dragging me toward exit despite protests. Last glimpse, Ethan kneeling, surrounded, love and remorse blazing in his gaze as he mouthed silently, "I love you." Doors closed, cutting him off. Outside, Ethan's remaining team secured us into SUVs, speeding away as I screamed against windows, heart tearing violently, shock, confusion, deep disorientation at his sacrifice after lifting me from powerless misery. We reached the estate where Evelyn waited, face composed yet eyes sharp with pain. She enveloped Noah first, then me, bruised, hysterical. "Tell me everything." Words poured in rush. Kidnapping, threats, Ethan's trade. Evelyn's voice held pride beneath steel. "My son chose love over empire. Noble fool." But urgency rose, phone calls rapid, connections mobilized. The estate became command center. Allies arriving despite rivalries, Malone's child endangerment tactics crossing unforgivable lines. I stood by windows watching night fall. Image of Ethan kneeling, haunting. His wealth, power, surrendered for us. Passionate love, overwhelming remorse and guilt. Drama escalated unbearably. Inner worlds torn. My torment at repayment debt. His likely suffering alone. Little did I know I would soon walk back into hell to balance the scale. The 6 hours after Ethan's surrender felt like an eternity stretched across broken glass. Back at the estate, Evelyn Caldwell moved with the calm precision of a woman who had lived in this world her entire life. She wrapped Noah in a blanket, settled him with a trusted nanny in a secure wing, then turned to me, bruised, shaking, tears streaming as I recounted every detail of the warehouse standoff. He traded himself for us, I whispered, voice cracking. Kneeled for us. Evelyn's eyes hardened with pride and pain. That's my son. Love makes fools of the strongest men. But inaction tore at me violently, inner torment escalating, shock numbing my limbs, dizziness sweeping as memories of destitute powerlessness resurfaced. Thin body enduring cold winds, malnourished nights rationing crumbs for Noah while humiliation burned. How could I sit in luxury while Ethan suffered? Confusion and horror warred, fear for him overriding everything. Evelyn saw it. We get him back. My family has connections, even Malone fears. Phone calls flew, rapid Italian-tinged conversations I couldn't follow, rallying neutral families and old allies. Malone's tactics, endangering a child, threatening trafficking, crossed sacred lines, jeopardizing everyone's operations with unwanted attention. The estate transformed into a war room, maps pinned across tables, representatives arriving, voices low and urgent. I paced by windows, sunset bleeding into night, image of Ethan kneeling, haunting, his wealth and power surrendered for a once destitute woman and her son. Passionate love he'd carried since my whisper now demanded reciprocity. Clarity struck amid torment. Frontal assault was what Malone expected, a war destroying everything. But using his ego, his need to humiliate Ethan through me, could buy time. We don't attack, I said suddenly, voice soft yet steady, surprising the room. All eyes turned. He wants spectacle, proof Ethan's weak for loving me, so give him that. I go in unarmed, offer permanent trade, sign whatever, stall while teams position. Protests erupted, Antonio's flat refusal, others calling it suicide. But Evelyn studied me, sharp interest dawning. She's right. Malone's vanity is his blind spot. He'll want the theater, broken lovers choosing each other. It buys positioning. My heart hammered, anxiety leaving legs numb, but determination overrode fear. This was repayment, for lifting us from pitiful misery, for passionate protection after years powerless. 20 minutes later, I stood outside the warehouse under floodlights, hands raised, simple jeans and t-shirt concealing nothing. Guards patted me down professionally, confirming unarmed. Here to negotiate with Malone, I called, voice timid yet clear. Voluntary. Inside mirrored hours ago, except Ethan now center chained to a beam, forced standing, bloodied, shirt torn, but alive. Our eyes met, fury blazed in his, then raw torment. Harper, what the hell? Same as you, I replied softly, making a trade. Malone emerged, pleased. Didn't expect you back so soon. I stepped forward, guarded yet resolute. You've proved your point, Ethan weak for me. Finish it differently. Let him go unharmed. I stay permanently, sign contracts, transfer wherever. You win without war drawing feds. Ethan surged against chains. No, absolutely not. Voice broken with conflict, remorse flooding for my return, passionate love tearing him apart. Malone circled, considering. My leverage. Alive and willing equaled spectacle, humiliation Ethan would carry forever, more valuable than bodies. I pressed. Written statement, voluntary, no crime, removes retaliation pretext. You destroy him by taking me willingly. He produced papers, legal pages claiming voluntary custody transfer. I signed without reading, hand steady despite inner violence, shock at risking destitution's return, yet love surging for Ethan, mirroring his sacrifice. Now release him, I demanded softly. Guards unlocked chains. Ethan dropped briefly, rising painfully, eyes never leaving mine. Broken plea there. Harper, please don't. Too late, I forced smile. Go, before I change mind. I'll come back, he promised deadly. Burn everything to find you. I know, I whispered. Guards dragged him out. Last gaze, I mouthed. I love you. Alone with enemies, Malone smiled coldly. Your new future awaits. But he'd miscalculated. The voluntary delay bought precious hours. Ethan's freed team, rallied by Evelyn's connections, moving into shadows. I stalled subtly, hidden burner phone, old habit from poor days, secretly recording Malone's confessions, trafficking plans, child leverage, evidence damning. Suspense built in condensed stillness, guards relaxing slightly at perceived victory. My heart tore increasingly. Fear, curiosity at outcome, passionate love for Ethan fueling courage. Little did Malone know, the counter-sacrifice was only buying time for salvation neither of us could yet see. The warehouse air grew thicker with every passing minute after I signed the papers, the illusion of victory settling over Malone and his men like a heavy fog. I stood unchained now, bruises darkening on my arms, thin frame trembling from exhaustion, and the lingering echoes of my old life. The malnourished nights curled against cold winds, sleep-deprived eyes burning while Noah whimpered from hunger in that leaking apartment. Here, surrounded by enemies, the disparity hit harder than ever. Their casual cruelty against the memory of Ethan's overwhelming wealth and protection, the estate's warmth now a distant dream. Malone paced triumphantly, outlining my transfer with smug detail. Overseas buyers, permanent removal. Guards relaxed slightly, suspense easing into arrogance. I kept my expression guarded, voice soft and polite when speaking, buying seconds with timid questions. Inside, turmoil raged violently, horror at risking return to destitution, yet passionate love for Ethan fueling every breath. Then the breach came, timed perfectly, north wall exploding in controlled force, Ethan's freed team storming with surgical precision. Snipers from surrounding buildings neutralized outer guards. Inner men fell swiftly under coordinated pressure. No wild chaos, just devastating efficiency. Tense confrontations resolved decisively. Ethan burst into the main space, sidearm drawn, eyes murderous yet tormented. He targeted Malone instantly, 2 precise shots dropping him screaming to kneecaps, then shoulders. That's for taking her, for threatening Noah, for making her sacrifice. I struggled up, dizziness sweeping, legs numb. Ethan, stop. It's over. He turned, rage dimming at my unharmed sight, but voice empty. Not until he's gone. Malone gasped about the contract, voluntary, no crime. Ethan crouched, pressing barrel to forehead. I don't care about paper. You hurt the woman I love. Drama escalated unbearably, my heart tearing at his vengeance after sacrifice, remorse flooding him for nearly losing us. Then a new voice cut through. Ethan Caldwell. Everyone froze. From the breach stepped Antonio, his trusted lieutenant of 15 years, flanked by several men, weapon raised casually. Shock numbed me deeper, confusion violent. Antonio smiled coldly. Change of plans. He fired once, Malone dead instantly. Silence fell, broken only by echoing shot. Antonio declared calmly, "I'm taking over. Caldwell Empire's mine now. And you, Harper, you'll stay as my prize." Betrayal shattered everything. Ethan staggered as if struck, fair-skinned face draining, gnawing remorse exploding into violent inner conflict, guilt for trusting wrong, passionate love clashing with devastation. 15 years of loyalty, gone for ambition and payout. Guards shifted allegiance swiftly, Malone's remnants subdued or joining. Antonio approached me, possessive gleam sickening. "Always thought you were wasted on him." Horror gripped me, anxiety leaving balance lost. Absurd unfairness after sacrifices. Pitiful past threatening return under worse monster. Tears pricked at Ethan's broken expression. Love burning fiercely, yet tormented by failure. Antonio raised the weapon toward Ethan for slow execution. Live stream planned for maximum humiliation. Warehouse fell into condensed, suffocating stillness. Suspense peaking. My inner world torn apart. Shock at trusted ally's knife. Fear for Ethan after his salvation. Recording on hidden burner, routed secretly via Evelyn's connections earlier, captured everything. Malone's confessions, now Antonio's takeover and threats. Evidence damning, but useless if we died. Ethan's eyes met mine across space, remorse, love, apology blazing. My heart tore increasingly intense, from destitute survivor to loved, now facing loss again. Little did we know the shocking betrayal was only prelude to my own defiant stand that would shift everything forever. In that frozen heartbeat after Antonio's betrayal, the warehouse became a tomb of shattered trust. Malone lay dead at our feet, his blood pooling dark against concrete, but the real wound was deeper. 15 years of loyalty revealed as ambition's mask. Ethan stood, restrained now, by former allies turned traitors, fair-skinned face ashen with devastation, eyes meeting mine in raw, tormented apology. Passionate love still burned there, intense and unwavering since my first whisper, yet gnawing remorse exploded into violent inner conflict, guilt for blindness, torment at failing us after sacrifices. Antonio advanced slowly, possessive gaze sickening me, voice casual. "Secure Caldwell for the stream. Slow. Make it hurt." Guards moved to comply, tension coiling as Ethan struggled silently, inner world tearing apart. My heart hammered, dizziness sweeping in waves, shock numbing limbs, balance lost against absurd unfairness. From destitute survivor enduring cold winds and malnourished nights alone with Noah, to loved fiercely by Ethan's wealth and power, now facing worse captivity under a traitor. Horror gripped me, anxiety violent. Pitiful past threatening return, humiliating powerlessness resurfacing after tasting security. Yet something shifted amid torment. Skills Ethan taught in quiet estate evenings. Basic defense, awareness, survival instincts honed from his world and my old one. Zip-tied loosely, Antonio's arrogance assuming submission, I stood near a distracted guard fumbling equipment for the live stream. Condensed emotional stillness fell, suspense peaking, warehouse echoing faint, distant traffic. My mind raced, hidden burner recording everything, Antonio's confession, takeover, routed secretly to Evelyn. Evidence damning but useless dead. Antonio raised weapon toward Ethan, taunting. "Any last words, boss?" Ethan's voice steady despite pain. "You'll regret this." In that moment, defiance ignited. Passionate love mirroring his sacrifices, determination overriding fear. Guard nearest turned slightly. I lunged subtly, using momentum Ethan drilled. Disarm twist, grab sidearm before reaction. Shot rang precise. Antonio's leg, dropping him screaming. Chaos flared controlled. I held room at gunpoint, voice soft yet commanding. Everyone freeze, weapons down. Guards hesitated, unexpected from prize, long enough for delayed breach. Federal agents storming, badges visible, raid triggered by recording Evelyn routed through old connections. Surgical efficiency neutralized threats, tense positioning, firm commands. Antonio and survivors cuffed on trafficking, conspiracy charges. Ethan freed instantly, staggering to me, arms crushing close. Remorse flooding, passionate love overwhelming. Harper, you. Voice broke, inner conflict easing into awe. Destitute woman he'd protected, now saving him directly. Equals forged in fire. I trembled, gun clattering, dizziness overwhelming. Shock at action, tears at survival. Couldn't lose you, whispered timidly. Agents separated us briefly for statements, but Ethan's gaze never left. Tormented gratitude, burning intensity. Outside under floodlights, night air sharp, reality crashed. Betrayal forced empire's end, but salvation complete. My defiance, lethal force from once powerless hands, sealed us as partners absolute. Little did we know, this ultimate act would clear path to redemption, an unbreakable future. Antonio's betrayal forced everything to collapse, but from those ashes rose something purer, stronger, and far more human than either Ethan or I could have imagined. The federal raid that night in August of 2025 wrapped up the warehouse in swift efficiency. Antonio and his turncoats taken into custody on ironclad charges built from my hidden recording. Ethan faced lesser counts for weapons, but full cooperation and the shift away from shadows earned him probation and a clean slate. The empire's illegal roots withered completely. Legitimate restaurants, clubs, and classic car restorations becoming our sole focus. 2 years passed in a blur of healing and rebuilding. By the summer of 2027, Ethan and I married in a small 4th of July ceremony in the estate's backyard, fireworks blooming over Lake Michigan, Noah as ring bearer, Evelyn smiling through proud tears. I wore a simple white dress, nothing extravagant, because the real beauty was in the quiet promise we made. Love unbound by past poverty or former power. Love that saw beyond skin color, wealth, or station. Only two hearts choosing each other fiercely. The disparity that once tore at me softened into gratitude. My nonprofit, teaching auto repair to at-risk youth and single mothers from Chicago's South Side, thrived under Ethan's quiet funding. Young women who had known cold winds, empty cupboards, sleep-deprived nights of worry, learned skills that opened doors. I watched them stand taller, just as Ethan had watched me. Our passion only deepened, nights still explosive with the same desperate fire from our first kiss, arguments fierce but resolved in even fiercer embraces. Ethan, once tormented by remorse for his shadowed life, found peace in legitimate success and family. His love remained intense, burning, protective, yet now tempered with humility, knowing a once destitute woman had saved him as much as he had saved her. On the 3rd anniversary of my first warning, hanging that small American flag charm in his charger, we welcomed our daughter. Born on a warm September morning, she opened dark eyes flecked with gold like mine, gripping Ethan's finger with surprising strength. We named her Grace Evelyn Caldwell. That evening, in the nursery overlooking manicured gardens, Ethan hung a tiny Cubs jersey beside Noah's old one. Noah, now 7 and sturdy, played catch outside with friends from the nonprofit. I stood cradling Grace, watching fireworks from a distant neighborhood celebration light the sky. Ethan wrapped arms around us, voice rough with emotion. We didn't just survive, Harper. We built something real. Tears pricked, sympathy for the girl I'd been, thin and powerless against cold winds, now surrounded by love transcending every barrier. "You gave me back my hope," I whispered softly. "And I gave you back your heart." He kissed my temple, fierce love surging anew. I'd face every betrayal again to end up here. In quiet moments like these, life lessons settled deep. Knowledge that true wealth lies in compassion, not money. Knowledge that love crosses every divide. Knowledge that sacrifice builds unbreakable bonds. Knowledge that redemption is always possible. Knowledge that family is chosen, not born. Lessons from pain teach us empathy. Lessons from poverty teach us gratitude. Lessons from betrayal teach us discernment. Lessons from love teach us courage. Lessons from forgiveness teach us peace. Education of the heart matters most. Education through hardship. Education through kindness. Education through standing for others. Education through refusing to let past define future. Education through building rather than destroying. We wish everyone watching this video good health, a joyful life, and daily peace. If this story touched you, please subscribe to the channel Alex Truths, like this video, and share it so more people can enjoy engaging stories every day. Tell us in the comments, how did this story make you feel? Does it connect to moments in your own real life? Share your thoughts. Alex wants to hear the emotions deep within your hearts. Thank you for joining us on this journey of love, sacrifice, and redemption. A reminder that no matter our beginnings, compassion and love can overcome any barrier. Disclaimer: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental. See you in the next video. Goodbye for now.